guys. Hello. It's a good day to be inside, right? I am thrilled to be joined today in this discussion about the path to parity by activist Lilly Ledbetter of the famous, yes, love that. Oh, this is a good room. Of the famous Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which, fun fact, was the first piece of legislation that President Obama signed into law when he took office. And of course, also famed designer, icon, and businesswoman powerhouse Tory Burch, who also deserves a round of applause. Who is on Forbes' own list of America's most successful self-made women. So I could not have two better people here to talk about parity. And I know time is tight, so we'll just jump right in. Also, aren't we so well coordinated? We didn't even talk beforehand. We just showed up here like that. So I'd love to start by asking you both to share your experiences with gender inequality in the workplace and within society at large. What was the most formative instance of power imbalance in your own life, and how did it catalyze the work that you're doing now?
No, all yours first.
Well, the unequal pay hit my life with, of course, I think most people know my story, but it was also devastating to me because I realized how much less all through the years I had made and how hard it was on my family to survive in the middle class America with that less money than I had really earned under the law. But it's a situation that in a lot of workplaces, the person is locked in.
Mm-hmm. And do you guys know what the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act does? Some of you, yes, some of you know. Ooh. So basically it means that if you feel that you're being unfairly compensated for your work, you can seek retribution for that under the law, which is a very powerful thing, a very powerful tool for people to have who may be in this situation. And what about you, Tori?
I just want to say I've been a fan of Lilly's for my entire life. So to be up here and be with Lilly, who has impacted me and every other woman I know, is just, and obviously you too, so thank you. But really, if people don't know Lilly's story, it's very essential and you'll tell a little bit about it. But for me, it was very different. I grew up with three brothers, not knowing that women would have more difficulties than men. And then basically, as soon as I got into the workforce, I realized that changed, and I saw different instances of it my entire career. I was called many things when I started the company. It was sort of thought of as a vanity project. It was never taken seriously. I was introduced as a woman CEO, and I got up and I started laughing. I'm like, when is a man ever introduced as a male CEO? But it just became very clear that women, aside from obviously access to capital and everything else, they're just treated differently. And so for me, that's been a goal of mine to hopefully move the needle in changing that discussion.
And future generations will benefit. So the pay gap is a huge problem in this country and around the world. The good news is that at this point in the cultural conversation, most people are aware that there is a pay gap, and most people are aware that it's bad. But what's the true extent of the damage that the pay gap does, and does it disproportionately affect some women over others?
Yes, it does. And take, for example, in my case, I'm a white female, and it takes me 12 months and around till April each year to earn what the white males earned last year. If you're African American, it takes you until August. If you're Hispanic, it takes you to November. In other words, they have to work almost 2 years to get equal pay, what the men made the year before. But it's a long reach thing, because once I finally learned how much less I made with a whistleblower giving me a note and a warning, and I realized that I was making 40% less than the men. And that not only affected my pay, my take-home pay, it was my overtime, my time and a half, double and triple. And then I thought, this is about my retirement. It's based on what I'm earning. It was about my contributory retirement. and my 401k, and then today, my Social Security, all is affected by what I was earning. And I had to file a charge. I just could not let it go. I just simply could not. That was not who I was, and it was not the law. There had been a law signed on equal pay in 1963. So I had to file a charge, and it ended up in court, federal court, and the jury awarded me $3.8 million. But the Supreme Court changed the law and took it all back. So it was critical that, and Justice Ginsburg challenged Congress to change the law back. And that was what was needed, because otherwise the young women today would never have the opportunity to stand up for their equal pay had it not got changed.
Yes. Did it occur to you when you were first filing that you weren't just fighting for yourself, but that you were fighting for every single woman in this country?
Yes, it did to some extent, but not as great as it did when the verdict came out from the Supreme Court in May of '07. And I'll give you a timeline. I filed a charge in '98. Federal trial was 2003. And then we got to Supreme Court in November of 2006. And the verdict did not come from the Supreme Court until May of '07. That was when the lawyer said, don't worry about the media, we'll handle it. But I thought about it, and I had had a good case. The law was on my side. I had good attorneys, and they had won the case. I had nothing to be embarrassed, and it was no longer at that moment about Lilly Ledbetter and my family, but it was about all of the people today. Because this affects everybody across this country, as well as men. When you talk about equal pay, it's a family affair.
That was, if you'll allow me, that was a very long fight that you had to fight. And I think one of the issues for women in this room and women around the country, there is a fear of speaking up, that in the process of fighting for yourself, you can actually put yourself at risk of getting fired, of not being able to get what you deserve. Was that an issue for you?
Yes, I had some issues while I kept trying to work. But the retaliation was just really so great. It was almost impossible. And then a lot of people, the men especially, would say, well, why did I take that man's job? It was not a man's job, it was just a job, and it was one that I was qualified for and good at. And I worked there for 19 years and 10 months, left on my own. So it wasn't I was a poor performer, like my employer said. And two, I work in Alabama Southern, you can tell this accent I have, but a little Southern drawl. But as an at-will state, and all they had to do was tell me go home. I wouldn't have any repercussion back about keeping my job.
Wow. So Tory, let's start with you. In your view, what is the solution? How do we get to the point of true pay parity across genders, races, sexual orientations?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it should be about the quality of work always. And that's something that we have to institute in the DNA of cultures and in businesses. And the fact that we're sitting here talking about a job and someone getting paid better for the same job, if they're a man or a woman or based on race, is appalling. It's 2020, and I was just listening to you, it's an issue of humanity. This is not a political issue. It's 50% of the population, and the fact is, women are additive to the bottom line. So I don't really understand why this debate is still going on. And so for me, there's concrete things we can do. I think full transparency in businesses is crucial. I think when this started to become really top of mind for me, we did an audit of our entire business and really looked at how everyone was being paid. And I think businesses can easily do that and make adjustments if need be. There's so many ways. I think we all have to be our best advocates. Having the confidence to speak up for who you are, your quality of work, and believe in yourself. I can tell you men certainly are able to do that. And when I think about myself early on, I had a hard time asking for a raise. And it just occurred to me, why is that? And why don't I become my own best advocate? And if I'm not my own best advocate, no one else is going to be.
It's really interesting. Women get fewer jobs than men, just speaking of that point, not because they're less qualified, but because men apply for more jobs that they aren't qualified for than women do. So in certain ways, we have higher standards of ourselves than men do, and for that reason hold ourselves back. You talk also about women being additive to the bottom line, and it can be even more than that. My parent company, Hearst, invests in startups, and I was talking to the guy who runs the program, and he told me that they specifically focus on women-run startups, not because they just want to, but because there's a higher success rate. So I think as soon as we can get out of our own way and start to see these statistics for what they are, we'll also start to see some change, which leads me to, what progress have you guys seen in the past decade, 5 years, a year, towards achieving this goal? And what do you think the most dramatic shifts have been?
What was the question again? You threw the men in there. I thought I had it. Go ahead.
What have you seen positive change? Do you feel encouraged by what's happening in the world
Yes,
now?
thank you. Yes, the progress in the last 10 years since the Ledbetter bill has been really progressing, but it's not where it should be. But we've progressed a lot because a lot of the states have passed their own equal pay laws and they can enforce them. That's what was wrong with the federal law to start with. It was never enforced. But what really happens is like what Tory's foundation, it helps women to become entrepreneurials, help them to get their funds. And you're exactly right in what you just said. So many women start their own businesses because, like they said, I can get paid right that way. And they do. They really like it, and they like the creativity and the joy of making something happen. The people we've heard on the stage here today have echoed that.
And women-run companies have better maternity leave policies, better morale overall.
Right.
Exactly.
But her foundation gives young women a great opportunity to be able to apply and help get funding to start a business, because most women, like myself even, we don't have the funds to hire lawyers or to start up a business or have the expertise we need. So we need some help along the way.
Right, right. What encourages you?
I mean, I think we've made progress. I think not nearly enough. And men have to be part of this conversation.
Yes.
It's 50% of the population. It seems like it should be a given, not a favor. When I speak to men about their daughters or their sisters, you definitely get their attention. And I think fathers don't want to think that their daughters are going to be disadvantaged in any way, just based on gender. That said, we have so much work to do, and I think just being your own best advocate, knowing that women are additive in business, and our foundation, what we are very interested in is sort of early stage business. It's not exactly startup, but when we see traction and we can get a company to reach $1 million in revenue, we see sustainability, and then we see longevity, and that's something that we're obsessed with. And simply women across the board have a much harder time getting access to capital. So if we can help women get access to capital, if men can be part of this conversation, because it will also help business. When you look at businesses that are that embrace all kinds of people and are open to a lot of diversity, they do better, and that's just a fact. They do better, and the transparency and that diversity adds to the equation of purposeful business, and that's the future.
Yes. Your point about men is such a good one. And you know, I think we all agree that men do have to be an equal part of this conversation, not just as allies and as advocates, but
as partners.
Yes, right. And that they need to take up the cause, not just because they may have a daughter, or not just because they may be married to a woman.
That's just an example.
Right, but they need to take this up as a mantle of their own. How, not that all responsibility should fall on women, but how can we get them there? How can we get men there?
They understand when they hear a lot of stories from different families. And in the early days after the decision came out in my case, the outcry and the outpour across the nation was just really, really strong. And I was shocked. Most of it came from senior men who was retired from like being professors at universities or in senior management positions, but most of it came from men. And that was shocking, but they talked about their wives and their mothers and their daughters. They remembered their mothers having to work 2 and 3 jobs to put them through college. And so they get it. They get it. Even school children, the little guys get it. They get it. But that's what will help us turn it around, or the men's support.
And I do see men that are doing that, like Tom Montag at Bank of America. I went to an event in Mexico City, and I was amazed because I saw many of the leadership team were women, and that was very exciting. He's a big supporter of women, and I think he is someone that people he could be a great role model to look at, and he's creating the dialogue that needs to happen, and that's super, super important.
That's a great point. We need to celebrate the men who are doing it right. So of course parity is about so much more than just equal pay. What are the broader discussions that you think this country should be having and that you think the upcoming presidential election should address that can help women get everything that we deserve?
That's right. So many college women come out with degrees, but they also have a tremendous debt. So we need a lot of aspects, and too, on the average in this country, women outlive spouses on average by 10 years. So the senior group in the country is made up of widowed women that can't stay independent because of the lack of income, not because they didn't work.
Right.
Just because they didn't get what they'd earned.
Right.
And this has gone on in a perception for so many years, so it'll be a hard job to change it, but the few steps of progress is helping.
Yes. Okay. So addressing debt is a big part of it. What else do you think?
I mean, I don't think it's a partisan issue. I think right now women's rights are under attack, and it's not even about one right. It's across the board. And I think together as a nation, we have to support women and their rights in all forms. And women of color, women of every ethnicity, age groups. It's just a fact that things are starting to go backward, and that's something that we need to stop.
Yes, so to that end, what are the actionable steps that we can all, every woman in this room, what are the actionable steps that we can and should take when we walk out that door?
Well, you touched on a point a while ago about the upcoming elections, because I encourage voters to be sure they know exactly who they're voting for and what they support and where did they come from and what's their background, and can we depend on that they're saying on the campaign trail. But it does make a difference, and we have to stay together. We have to progress together. There's enough of women that we can support it and move it forward, and enough of men that can help support us as well. But we need to lobby for any new bills in Washington that would help too, like paycheck fairness.
Yes.
Well, get out and vote for sure.
Yes.
I mean, we need to do that. And I think everyone has some form of unconscious bias, and that's something that we all have to acknowledge and understand. And even when being a CEO and I hire someone, I don't want my view to be based anything on whether they're a mom or they're about to have a child or that they will leave the workforce for a few months. And then, for me, it's about how do we create environments that support being a woman in business and give her the opportunity to have a family and come back to that business. And certainly it's about ambition and things like that, which we talk a lot about, but women who are stay-at-home moms can be ambitious. We just want to be able to create environments and create a dialogue that allows women to have the freedom to do what they want.
God, I love that. Wow. As a woman in business myself, I don't run a company nearly as big yet. The applause you deserve. I don't run a company nearly as big as you do, but if I may add my voice to this, I would also say ask for more. Go into your boss's office and ask for more. I run a staff of 60.
Know your self-worth.
Yes, I run a staff of 60 young women. I expect every single one of them to walk through my door and say, I deserve more, so that I can go fight on their behalf. So don't be afraid. everyone expects you to do it, so go, ask for what you deserve.
I mean, confidence is tough, and that's seriously,
It
being
is.
your own best advocate is super hard.
Yes.
Lilly, I'm impressed and honored to be on this stage with you because you had the confidence to change the world for women, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I just couldn't
Likewise.
let it go because that wasn't who I was, and I'm still out there. And for the audience benefit, I never got a dime, not one penny out of anything. So
Hard to imagine.
So it's you know, it's just it's a cruel world, but you keep going. You hold your head up and your shoulders back, and with confidence, then you go forward and to educate young people today.
Amazing.
Thank you.
We're right on time. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.